Hello viewers, today we will be cleaning and servicing this SMC fan. This is model number TF6. Unfortunately it is made in China, but I think it's old enough that it'll still be a good quality. This name tag thing here is very reflective. It's hard to get a good picture of it. Don't see a date code that's in plain sight. It's got a number 701J, perhaps that decodes to reveal the date. I suspect this is a product of the late 90s, maybe early 2000s. I've always liked these SMC fans. My grandfather had a 12-inch model years ago, which I have now. I think I've done videos of it before. And I always liked it for whatever reason. Let's see how this works. I don't think it works very well at all. Nope, the bearings are locked up. It's definitely got some hours on it, but it's not like it's outrageously dirty. Anyways, let's begin. I gotta get in to the motor housing to clean and service the bearings. It's got one of these things holding the guard together, which I don't like. So we'll begin by undoing that. Actually, it's so loose it may not even have to be undone anymore. The guard just kind of comes off, you pull the tabs off, and there it is. So there's the inside of the guard. So one thing is bent. Two of them are kind of bent, actually. That looks pretty good now. So we'll clean that off. And the blade. What in the world? It just freed up. Okay, let's try again. Well, it's running now, albeit very poorly. Okay, that's kind of interesting. So take the blade off. And there's the blade. It's got a pretty good pitch to it. Not bad. And now we have the shaft, which has some rust on it, so we're going to want to polish that. Looks like there's 3 screws on the back of the motor that we need to remove, motor housing rather. Now we have the inside of the fan. It's actually a pretty beefy motor compared to what I've seen in other models like this by other brands. These 2 screws on the bottom should remove the motor from the housing. Now we can just pull the motor out. It's getting caught on the wire a little bit. There it is. And this is the wire's kind of stuck in there. I'm going to remove this nut from the neck here so that we can detach the base. This is all plastic, so we'll wash that. And I'm going to put the cord, push the cord through here, and I'm going to slide this most of the way through so that I can put this in the sink and keep the motor a safe distance away so it doesn't get too wet. This motors and water is not really a good combination. Unless, of course, it's a water-cooled pump or something like that. I don't know, whatever. And this is a molded plug, so it can get wet and it won't be an issue. Okay, that should be good enough. And then I'm also going to remove in full this thing here. It probably could get wet and it wouldn't be an issue, but I'd rather not get metal parts wet if I don't have to. Okay, so we'll wash that. Now let's take a look here. We're going to remove the switch. Pull the knob off, wash that, and now we're left with the motor, which we need to do some servicing on. So what I'm going to do here with the motor is I'm going to put some detergent lubricant in there so that we can clean the bearings. This is the red and black can of the 3-in-1 oil. Okay, now that that's in there, I'm going to get some sanding paper. This is pretty rusty, so I think I'm going to start with the coarser paper. Turn this on. Okay, and we'll start with the coarse paper. And we're just going to go up and down the shaft like this. Okay, now we'll go through with the finer grit sandpaper. You'll be able to tell when it's clean because it'll get quieter. So now you don't really hear any grinding anymore. Okay, so that's good enough for that. Now we're going to disassemble the motor. Now the reason why we just did that to the shaft is so that now this will slide off easily. No resistance. And you can see on the shaft where the wear is and where it's been running with a lack of lubrication. Now if you have a lathe, you can put this on a lathe and do a very, very fine removal of the top layer there to get that discoloration off. I don't have one, and so we're not going to worry about that in this situation. Now we do want to take note of the way the motor is orientated, knowing that this is the front and this is the back, because if it's put in the other way around, the fan blades will run in the opposing direction compared to what they're supposed to do. Now I'm going to get one of my used ticker towels out here, and I'm going to put this under this in case any oil drips. And then I'm going to go get a new one that we're going to use to clean the bearings. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is clean the bearings out. These are actually pretty dirty. I'm going to go through it again. Okay, so that's that. Front bearing will do the same thing. Front bearing is not quite as bad. There's kind of like a manufacturing defect. You can see it's got a shard there. I don't know why it's like that. I'm not going to be concerned about it. It's very close to contacting the shaft, but it's not quite there, so shouldn't be an issue. Okay, now we'll clean the shaft off. Now there's an array of actually quite a few washers on here. 1, 2, 3 washers. Take them all off. Clean the surface here. Get everything cleaned. Get rid of all the dried up sticky lubricant that's in there. And then I'm going to clean each of these individually, because ideally these should be able to spin freely amongst each other, and they won't do that if they're filthy. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing on the front now. Front wasn't nearly as bad. So that's all cleaned up now. I'm going to get the oil out. We can use 2 different kinds. We can use the infamous 3-in-1 blue can, because it's specifically for fans. It says it right there. Fans. Or we can use zooming spout, which is specifically for electric motors, fans included. So we're going to take the bearings and we're going to fill the cloth wick around here with oil. Should absorb quite a few drops. Okay, I'll let that soak in for a minute, and then we'll do the same on the front. It's absorbing the oil a lot quicker than the rear one was. Okay, so we're going to let that sit, and then while that sits I'm going to go clean the plastic parts, and then we'll come back and reassemble. Alright, now that these bearings have had a chance to absorb the oil, I'm going to put some oil onto the shaft. And I'm going to make sure that it gets in between the washers there so that those can run freely. And now we will reassemble it. The design here is kind of clever. There is a flat notch on here, and if you put the screw through and you align the what is this thing? A bolt. You align the bolt just such that will hold it in place as you screw it in, and there will be no need for a wrench. And these screws do not have to go very tight. Uniformity is important here. And now at this point it's probably going to be kind of stiff. It is. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a screwdriver and strike the shaft a few times, and that will free it right up. Okay, and just for good measure I'll put a couple more drops of oil in here. That was a bit too much, now it's leaking out. Okay, so that's running pretty freely now. Satisfied with that. So we'll begin to reassemble. All the parts cleaned up pretty well. This blade has some water staining on it, so we'll just wipe that off. Okay, we need to pull the cord back through. The motor had some issues going in. It kept getting stuck on the sides, but now it's in place. Now we need to get the switch back on. Okay, that's it for the motor. Let's pause for a moment and test it out just to make sure it's working properly. It does appear to be working properly. So we'll proceed. Let's get the base back on. Okay, now put the blade on. Spin down time is good. Put the guard on. And we'll screw this back on. Even though I think this is really not necessary, but we'll put it on anyways because it's supposed to be there. Okay, that concludes the reassembly. So now let's test it out. Start off on high. That moves pretty good air, and it's kind of like a wide airstream. It's not a narrow breeze like these usually produce. I can feel air 1.5 feet wide back by the camera. Not bad at all. This is a pretty good fan. And it's quiet too. I don't think it's quite as quiet as the 2002W, but it's definitely quiet. Well, it was very quiet. Still moving a good amount of air. It's not shabby at all. I like this fan a lot. The knob is kind of hard to turn, but other than that, it's got a really good performance. Spin down is good. Cleaned up quite nicely too. Okay, so that's that. That will conclude the cleaning and servicing of this SMC 6-inch table fan.